Breed. Next is John Lyons, who's our candidate in the Artanian area.
Yeah, in Beaumont, Donaghamede. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'd just like to speak briefly on the housing and homelessness crisis that we're faced right across the country, and most acutely in Dublin. People for Profit, I think, has pledged, and it's in our manifesto here today, that when elected, all of our councillors really need to push to the fore, what is the biggest single task of any local authority, which is to provide social housing for the people, affordable, comfortable housing for the people. And I think they've failed utterly over the past 4 to 5 years. And as Richard said earlier, we came through one of the biggest property bubbles in world history, and we have currently in Dublin City alone 16,000 households waiting on the housing waiting list. And just going on the doors, the biggest issue for people, aside from the hated water charge, is actually housing. And I think we need to really push it to the fore. The recent announcement by the Minister of Responsibility for Housing, Jan O'Sullivan, I think was a disgrace. She announced that over the next 2 years, they're going to spend 68 million building 449 new houses, when there's 98,000 households on the waiting list. I think it's an insult to the people that I meet day to day, some of whom have been on the waiting list for over 10 years, and all they want is to have a place that they can call home, where they can actually make a home and rear their family. And I think the government have been utterly despicable in how they've treated these people, some of whom have lingered even 14 to 15 years on that waiting list. So what People for Profit is pushing forward here today is a major policy, which is to provide social housing, because the state is rolling back on that, and we will push at a council level that the state has to provide social housing for the 98,000 households across the country. Secondly, we have a major spike in rents right across the country, but again, most acutely in Dublin, with rents for apartments going up 8% last year, and for houses by 6.3%. And I think what we need to see here in Dublin, and what we will push on the council, is rent controls. We need to have serious regulation that will control the rents, because they're going through the roof, as they say. But we also need an increase in the rent caps, because people just are being made directly homeless, because landlords are putting up the rents and they simply can't afford the extra €200 to €300 that landlords are demanding from them. So, you know, housing is a human need. We all need it, and the government are sadly lacking in this aspect of their responsibility. So what we in People for Profit will do right across the country on all the local authorities is to push to demand that social housing, that a major problem of social housing construction be commenced straight away, and that rent controls and rent caps be introduced for people who are in effect been made directly homeless by the policies of the government.
Thanks very much, John.